Hey guys, we are back. This is Colin Stevens. I am joined today here by Benny Moss, Associate Head Coach at Coastal Carolina University here in just outside of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Benny, thanks for being here, man.
Colin, thanks for having me. I appreciate this. This means a lot for you to ask me to do something like this for you, because I think the world of you and glad to help you any way we can.
Thanks, man. So Benny's got a heck of a story, and he's got a few years logged in this thing. So, Benny, if you will, catch us up on your playing journey, your coaching journey, just kind of where that went.
Right. Well, I played high school basketball growing up in the state of North Carolina, a little small town in Pilot Mountain just outside of Winston-Salem. I was fortunate enough to be recruited pretty heavily from a small town, wound up playing at Charlotte, UNC Charlotte, for Jeff Mullins, who had won an NBA championship with the Golden State Warriors. Played there, had a good career when I was healthy.
Yeah.
Battled through a lot of injuries through my playing career. Was on the all-freshman team in the Sun Belt. Had a good career. Signed a pro contract to play overseas after I was through playing my senior year of college ball, and had an unfortunate accident and blew my knee out in a counselor's game in camp that summer. Wound up not being able to play, but I've been in coaching for 25 years now, and that injury really led to the profession I'm in today.
Right. Now I got to interrupt a little bit because how tall are you?
I'm right at 6'9".
So 6'9".
Yep.
Word has it that you could shoot it.
I was a decent shooter.
So you were a precursor to today's NBA stretch. Everybody shoot it.
Right.
We just didn't know it yet.
No, exactly.
Okay.
If I played in this day and time, I would be a hot commodity.
Okay.
Because I did like to hover around the 3-point line and make a few shots.
Okay.
But I could shoot the ball pretty well.
Right.
And but with that injury, another door opened. I got a chance to be a graduate assistant for Bobby Lutz at Pfeiffer College. We had a tremendous year. My intent was to get healthy and to play with the guys from the second semester after I got released and try to go back and play again.
Right.
And fell in love with the coaching aspect of it, and things have a way of working themselves out. There was a full-time spot opened on that staff at the end of that year. The job I had done as a graduate assistant, Coach Lutz asked me to stay on and be a full-time assistant. And I had to make a life decision. Did I want to continue to play, or did I want to go ahead and move to the next phase of my life? And very happy I made the choice, because I've been doing this for 25 years and have had a great experience with a lot of young men, helping them both on and off the court become the best that they can be. And so I was at Pfeiffer for 3 years, and then Coach Lutz got an opportunity to go to my alma mater, Charlotte, as an assistant coach. And then that made a change in my life, and I went sight unseen to Oklahoma to coach at an NAI school. Did that for 2 years. Had a very good success. At Pfeiffer, we played in Final Four games. Coach Lutz's last year at Pfeiffer, we played for the national championship against Birmingham Southern. When I went to Oklahoma, our second year, we were rated number 1 in the nation, 33-2. Came back from the national tournament. They padlocked our doors and filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy as a university. And so, again, a lot of ups and downs in my coaching career. You go from number 1 in the nation, playing in an Elite Eight, to coming home and they closed the doors of your school.
Yeah.
And, my wife worked in admissions. I was a basketball coach. And so it made it tough on us because there were no paychecks coming in at the time. And was fortunate to be able to go to Arkansas, Henderson State University after that. And we won 2 conference championships there and went to 2 national tournaments there. And after those 4 years out there, Coach Lutz was the head coach at UNC Charlotte. He had moved up from the assistant and was able to bring me back to my alma mater to work with the guy who gave me my first job in the business.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of success there in our 6 years, and went to 5 postseasons and won 2 or 3 Conference USA championships, and allowed me to get the head coaching job at Wilmington. I was there for 4 years, had some ups and downs there, inherited a program that only had 5 scholarship players my first year. So we took some lumps that year, but we had good recruiting. Wound up winning 20 games or so the next year, and had the largest turnaround in NCAA Division I in my second year.
While you were at Wilmington, what were those years?
I was there. I got the job in May of 2006, and so I was there from 2006 to 2010.
Okay, good, because I finished my career here in 06, and I didn't think it was one of your teams that drilled us, but we got drilled one time by Wilmington.
But we did, in my career there, we did play Coastal.
Yeah.
We played them at our place one time, played here one time.
Yeah.
And then as would have it, some things happened. They fired my athletic director, and so my job kind of changed, and so I was no longer going to be there, and I thought I wanted to do the NBA thing, and I did that for about 8 months, did it for a year, did the scouting thing, and realized that's not what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a coach, a teacher, but I also wanted to be someone. The reason I got into this business was to help young men.
Yeah.
Not just be the best basketball players they could be, but to also be the best person they could be, and to be the best student they could be. And I didn't have any of that.
Right.
I was only going and watching 4 or 5 games a week, typing up on my laptop what I saw, hitting submit, going to a general manager, going to a director of scouting, and just it wasn't meant for me.
Right.
And then was very fortunate that Coach Ellis called me and had an opportunity for me at the end of that year of scouting, and starting my 8th year here.
Yeah, he's a shot now. I like it, man. When I was coming down from Baltimore, I was like, what's a Chanticleer? Like, what is that? And then I learned it's a terrifying, cunning rooster.
Oh, yeah.
So, yes.
Right.
Yes, from Canterbury Tales.
Exactly.
I dig it. All right, so your journey, right? I mean, everybody's got a different journey, but everybody has to go through something. Like what, you shared a couple of little things there in terms of like some obstacles, some difficult times for you to get over. Are there any like specific failures or obstacles that you had to get around in order to keep? Is there like stuff that really just sticks out in your mind that, you got through, you overcame, or how you did it?
Well, yeah. I mean, there are several obstacles. I mean, we'll get into some of the other childhood things with faith and all that later.
Yeah.
But as far as the profession, obviously, when I made a decision not to go back to Pfeiffer, there was a conscious decision on my part with Coach Lutz leaving and the next phase of my career. I made a conscious decision that I was going to move on to the next phase of my life and go somewhere else, and prayed about it. And and the one thing I would say, and we'll get into faith later, but I was sitting there, I was praying, and I was asking, and I was praying, and I was asking. God kept giving me the answer, but it wasn't necessarily the answer I wanted.
Right.
And long story short, I finally listened, and I moved sight unseen all the way out to Oklahoma. So that was one obstacle. Then obviously coaching at a school that it files bankruptcy.
Yeah.
And then me and my wife both worked at the university, and so it became a very difficult time financially because, my first job at Pfeiffer, I have my MBA. I got a Master's of Business Administration with a 4.0, had plenty of opportunities in the business world to go make a lot of money.
Right.
But I've never been about anything financial, and which is obvious because I turned down a 6-figure job in the business world to coach at Pfeiffer for $5,000, free room and board. And,
now that's love, ladies and gentlemen. That is loving the game.
Absolutely. But then, probably the biggest trying time was, when I was the head coach at UNCW.
Yeah.
And, to inherit a situation that was not great, with 5 scholarship players in the program, building it over the course of a 2-year period to where we won 20 games, finished second in the Colonial.
Yeah.
Only to have, the guy that brought you there get let go at the start of your second year.
Right.
And, and so it became some trying times, but, as my wife said, the UNC Wilmington job was not for me. The UNC Wilmington job was for my daughter. There was a unique circumstance in that I was the top assistant at Charlotte. We had a lot of success. I was not going anywhere else as an assistant coach. There was no amount of money anybody could pay me to leave my alma mater working for Coach Lutz. And so, prior 2 years earlier, I had interviewed at the University of Louisiana Monroe at the Final Four for the head job. I didn't get it. The next year, I interviewed at Western Carolina, get brought to campus for a second interview, did not get the job. And I was, at that point, I'm not leaving to be an assistant coach. And then that third year, I got the job at UNC Wilmington. And as would have it, my daughter's 4 years old. God opened that door for us, for her, because she now has a very rare eye disease that was undetected. In the daycare we were at in Charlotte, they didn't do the eye screenings.
Oh, right.
And when we moved to Wilmington, we put her in the daycare, and they did the eye screenings.
Oh.
And so once they did the eye screenings, we got word that she has potential nearsightedness. So we went to an eye doctor in town after the screening. The eye doctor noticed some retinal problems. So eye screening, day 1, doctor on day 2, sent to a retinal specialist on day 3. We were sent to Duke University on day 4.
Ooh.
And my daughter has now, at this point, 12 years later, had about 20 procedures on one of her eyes.
Oh, my goodness.
And had we not discovered it at that point, she probably would have lost that eye.
Yeah.
And so, as my wife will tell you, the UNC Wilmington job wasn't for me.
Yeah.
It was for my daughter.
Yeah.
And but we went through some struggles there, with her health, then with the AD being fired, and then obviously later deciding to make changes and things like that.
Right.
So, and you just persevered and thought I wanted to do the NBA thing, and wasn't for me, and God opened this door, and 8 years later, I'm extremely excited to be here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's so cool too, and we've talked about faith, and you've kind of alluded that we'll get to that later, but
right.
It's kind of cool, like it's a part of your world, like it's
Yes.
a part of who you are, it's a part of your family, it's a part of how you coach,
right.
And so it's not something that's separated, even though we're going to kind of transition into it right now,
right.
But it's interesting to me that you guys are able to talk about, you guys as in your family is able to
right.
see, like, God orchestrates things not just for our plan, for
right.
the because we have have an agenda.
Oh yeah,
we
no
have
question.
an agenda, man.
No
and even the thing with it not working out with the NBA, it's because your heart is in developing young people.
Exactly.
And like that's the coolest thing to me about coaching is that
right.
that opportunity that's there.
Yes.
But so where did your faith start? Like, did you just go ahead and buy it at Walmart, or did it okay?
Nah. And anybody that's ever played for me as an assistant coach or a head coach knows, I'm big in my faith.
Yeah.
I'm not one of these guys that goes out and proclaims, and I don't self-promote any of that. But, my pillars of stone are faith, family, books, and ball. Anybody that's ever played for me knows that.
Yeah.
First comes your faith, then comes your family,
right,
and then become your books,
right.
And then fourth on the list is basketball.
Right.
And you find out if you're confident in your faith, you have things right with your family, and you're taking care of your school, you're more organized.
Yeah.
You're a more well-rounded person, and the basketball's going to become better.
Right.
And but I was very fortunate to be brought up in a God-fearing home. Yeah. And at a young age, I saw a lot. Mm-hmm. And when I was in the fourth grade, there are two different factors, one from my mother and one from my father, that led to the faith that I have today. When I was in the fourth grade, my father was in a very serious automobile accident, and he was in a coma for several months. And we were told, my mom was told that he would never wake up. And she needed to, from day one, he's not going to make it. You need to pull the plugs. You need to do this, and and obviously being in a small town, Pilot Mountain, North Carolina, my pastor has since passed, but Floyd Puckett was our pastor at our church that we went to. My mom, she prayed, and she prayed feverishly, and and the church gathered around. The church prayed, and after a few months of him in a coma, it's kind of like when her faith was starting to dwindle. that's the day he woke up.
Oh, man.
And, so I saw the power of prayer.
Yeah.
And, we were told he would never wake up, and he woke up.
Yeah.
Then when he woke up, we were told, well, he'll never lead a normal life. He'll never speak again. He'll never walk again.
Yeah.
And then about couple months later, my mom walked into the hospital room, and he says, would you cut that TV down? So we didn't think he could talk.
Right.
The next thing you know, he can talk. Then it's, then he'll never walk again. He'll never be able to lead a normal life.
Right.
And, through hard work and, physical therapy, he did walk again.
Wow.
Man. And, to this day, he's still disabled, but he drives, he walks, he does all this. So my faith comes from a tragedy early in my life when I was in the 4th grade, and seeing the power of prayer from my mom and our church, and then to see her faith through that. But then after my dad recovered, and to see how he gave back, he became a servant.
Yeah.
If you look, you can look up in the Guinness Book of World Records. My dad has the most volunteer hours ever in the history. And what he's done is, since he was at Baptist Hospital in Winston-Salem, which is now Bowman Gray, Wake Forest University Baptist Hospital, since he has been able to, he has been a volunteer at the hospital where they brought him back to life, where he did his physical therapy, those type things. So the prayers of my mother, and then seeing the ability to be a servant back to the hospital where my father spent so much time. Those are the two biggest things that have led to my faith being where it is today.
Well, I see a couple things in that, and one, like when you first started talking about your faith, you said, I don't proclaim, I'm not saying all this, I don't self-promote, I'm not pushing it out there. But really, when it comes to our faith, what we believe, our faith is what leads to our actions.
Right.
And so people should know our faith by who we are, by how we treat people, by how we do what we do. And I think, I've seen it, like in our friendship, I've seen it, and so, but then but to also, to see the, it's hard, sometimes it's hardest to believe that good things will come when everybody says that they won't. Like, so your dad was told, or like you guys were told, that it wasn't going to go this way.
That's right.
And that, to me, that's so massive, that it wasn't like, oh, you guys were okay.
Yeah.
You guys didn't just take the word of people.
Right.
Because everybody's going to tell us that our life should go a certain way, or we should do this, or we should do that.
Yep.
But if we can align ourselves with what God wants, or what God wants to do, because this is the reality, is your dad, being brought back, that brings God glory. That brings him honor, and then your faith, seeing that as a 4th grader, I can't imagine, just.
It was life-changing, obviously.
Yeah.
And again, I share my story with, when people ask, but more than anything, I just try to live the life that you're supposed to live. Yeah. And hopefully my players just see that I'm a good guy.
Right.
They see that I'm always willing to do what's right.
Right.
And and I think that's where that lies. And, you've got to set an example for your players. Yeah. And because trust me, things aren't always going to go your way. Yeah. As a human being, as a coach, as a player. Right. You played this game as well. There are going to be bumps in the road. And as freshmen, you're going to come in. Almost every freshman that goes to college was the best player on their high school team. Right. And they have to understand that it's not going to be that way from the very beginning. There's a lot of hard work that's involved, and then when you're faced with adversity, how do you handle it? I think that is the telling sign of a human being. Yeah. Is how do they handle adversity?
Absolutely.
And the way you should handle it is obviously, the only thing I know is to work hard. Right. I didn't have much growing up.
And to treat people well.
To treat people well. Work hard, treat people well, and be a good person.
Because this is what happens. A lot of time we hit adversity and we want to start blaming people.
Exactly.
We want to start treating people like crap. We feel like crap because of the stuff we're going through, so then we treat people like crap. Right. Or it affects the rest of who we are. But you're right, man. Like somebody, if we can in the adversity, we can keep working hard and we can treat people well. And people see that. They see something. There's something else to it.
Yeah, and it's all in how you handle things. My dad had the accident. my mom looked at it as a way to strengthen her faith.
Mm-hmm.
My dad, coming out of the accident, found a way to give back.
Right.
You know, I mean, we all have adversity in life, but you got to find the good in it. I mean, like with my daughter's situation, you know, it's you can be, you know, why is God doing this to my child? Why is this happening to my child? As opposed to, like my wife said, you know, we should be more, thank you God for getting us to somebody that could detect it in time to save her vision in her eye.
Sure.
You know, I mean, you either got to look at it as a positive or a negative. And, you know, I choose to look at things from a positive outlook.
And you got to see a great example from your mom and your dad, how they handle adversity. You come across a lot of players who don't get to see that example day in and day out. And so this is the importance of college coaching in my mind.
Yeah,
You've got 18 to 23-year-old young men who are trying to figure life out. Mm-hmm. They come in as freshmen. They probably think they know a lot.
Yeah.
They're going, and when they get out as seniors, they're like, oh my gosh, I don't know anything. Right. But along that time, like, coaches get the chance to set the tone for how they handle things.
Right.
And I think a lot of times, like, it becomes so much about the business of winning
mm-hmm.
that a lot of times players don't get to see the vulnerability of a coach, or like what a coach has gone through and what they've overcome. You know, I wonder, you know, and you're a pretty open guy with a lot of your players, and you've established a lot of really good relationships with them. And I wonder how many of them, even you as open as you are, know about some of the stuff that you've been through that shaped you, because a lot of times these players, they think that everybody else, and when they're having the problems, everybody else is okay. Right. Everybody else hasn't gone through anything.
Right, exactly.
Woe is me. I'm the only one who's facing adversity right now. You know?
Oh yeah. You hear that a lot from your players.
Yeah.
I mean, especially freshman coaches. You know, I thought I would make the transition easier. I thought I would be further along than I am, and but again, you pick and you choose your stories to tell and when to tell them, and and again, there are a lot of players that have played for me that know my story.
Yeah.
There are others that don't know the depth of the story.
Sure.
And maybe that's a discussion at a later point in their life. You know, you gotta, God opens the door to talk to them at a certain time about the certain things, and I've been very fortunate. I have worked hard, but I've been very fortunate. I've been in the right place at the right time. With Coach Lutz. He gets the job at Charlotte after I've been in Oklahoma and Arkansas. I've been fortunate, but again, and a lot goes back to the players. You owe it to the players, because in my first 13 years of coaching, I went to 11 NCAA tournaments, and I was very fortunate that we had good players, but we also had good kids.
Sure,
and and that's something as coaches we look at, because talent can win games, but you got to have something more than talent. You have to have talent plus character plus other things, to be able to take it to the next level. And I've been very fortunate to coach a lot of good players over the time that are equally good people.
Right.
And, and those, even all the championships we've won, even here at Coastal, at Charlotte, and all the other non-Division I schools I was at, those things are good, but none of it means as much as when you get that phone call from the former player.
Yeah.
You get that message on social media from a former player that, they've had a child, they're getting married, different things. I'm moving to the next phase of my life. And, those are the most rewarding things. Yeah, the wins and the championships, they're great. But the reason I got into coaching was to make a difference in young people's lives. And that's what I get the most joy out of, is getting those phone calls or those messages and things that guys are being successful.
Well, and you have to play the long game a bit as a coach, right? Mm-hmm. Because the short game is we've got to win now. Right. And because sometimes, honestly, in the coaching business, like if you don't win enough now, you're out. Right?
No
and then it's the turnover, and then it's the looking for the next job, and it's
exactly.
But the long game is building those relationships where guys that maybe, some guys are going to come through and they're more put together. They come from great families, and they're not going to need you all the time.
Right.
But then there's those guys that come along and they don't have somebody who's cared about them, that's been a dadish figure.
Right. Absolutely.
And when you play the long game, it's like, okay, like I'm in this because I get a chance to impact them as they continue going.
Exactly.
And they can feel trusted by me, you know? And that's the hard part. I want to go back to a little bit of your why, of why you're coaching college basketball, because you said you also had a stint as a scout, an NBA scout.
Yes.
Because this is the thing, is a lot. I know, especially the day and time we live in, social media will put highlights and highlights and highlights out. So a lot of younger guys that want to get in the coaching profession maybe don't know exactly where they fit in, whether it's high school, college, or NBA, or training, or whatever, right? So what was it about the NBA or your role as a scout in the NBA that helped you even shape more like you wanted the college game?
Well, I mean, I'd done the college game for several years. I mean, I'm going into year 25 now.
Right.
I mean, I've done 25 years of college plus the one of the NBA. And, in doing the NBA thing, it was exciting at first.
Yeah.
It was like, all right, this is the next phase. This is where I go from here. And I kind of lost sight of the reason I got into it. And, going and watching all those games, it was fun at first, but then it was kind of like it became empty.
Yeah.
There was no competition. There was no, am I going to win or am I going to lose?
Right. From the scouting perspective, right? Yeah.
I'm just going and watching college games.
Right.
And it's like, I miss the preparation. I miss talking to our guys. I miss putting a game plan together.
Yeah.
I mean, I miss winning or losing.
Right.
Obviously, when you've done coaching for 25 years on the heels of a successful college basketball career, competition is something that's important to you.
Sure.
And I was really missing that. But more than anything, I missed the interaction. I missed going into a living room of a recruit with his parents and assuring those parents that I would have their child's best interest in mind, and that I would be there for them through the good times, the bad times. I would never sugarcoat anything. I would always be honest with them. They may not like what I have to say,
right,
but I'm always going to be honest with them. And I miss the interaction, talking to the parents and having them entrust the next phase of their child's life over the next 4 years of a college career to someone like me. And then I miss teaching. I mean, I like developing young men in more areas than one.
Sure.
I love the individual one-on-one meetings with our players, where we can talk not just basketball, but we can talk about what's going on campus, what's going on back home, what's happening in your life. And, and so those interactions I really missed. Now, from a scouting standpoint, I learned a lot of things also that I can transpose to every player coming through here wants to be a pro.
Sure.
At some level, whether it's NBA, whether it's Division I Europe, whether it's Division III in a poor country, whatever the case may be, they all want to be pros.
Yeah.
And, so I've got the experience from the other side as to, some things that people look at.
Sure.
And it's not just about your skill, because it's splitting hairs, the difference between being a 12th or 13th roster spot on an NBA team versus being overseas to be staying at home without a job.
Right.
It's a very, very, very fine line. And, and so what you have to do is you have to talk to these young men that are trying to be pros and talk to them about the things I learned. The things that our organizations would talk about are not just, why are we going to take this guy? Why is this guy an NBA player?
Yeah.
It's a business deal. It's an investment. They were more interested in, why do I not need to invest in this young man? What's in his history that could cause us to not be successful if we take him? And, so that's something that, I always say, be where you're supposed to be, when you're supposed to be there, and do your absolute best when you're doing it. And if you do that, some good things, and you're doing the wrong things, that you're not going to be successful.
Even if you're really, really talented.
Exactly.
If you're not doing those three things, it shortens your opportunity.
No question. And like I do, if you're an elite level player, we're talking, I've seen guys, and you've seen it as well, in the draft, guys could be slotted, top 5. But then all of a sudden something comes up in their past while the teams and the people are doing the research, and you see them falling from 5th to 13th,
Yeah.
13th to 18th, because again, that's where those teams are like, all right, something's wrong here.
Right.
You know, do we take this risk?
Right.
And ultimately, for some of them, if they're on the elitist of levels,
Yeah.
they're probably still going to make it. It may just be a different path, or it may be a different draft position.
Sure.
But for the guy who's just trying to get a job, it could be
Yeah.
the difference in you having a job or not having a job.
Right.
You know, in whatever country it is.
Right. Like along with that, it just made me think of like playing the long game again. Like if you do those 3 things that you just said, like, and you're a super elite, athlete and talented player, not only are you going to be successful while you have your 5, 8, 10-year NBA career,
Right.
but then after that,
No question.
because this is the thing, it's like, and I get it, I was in college and I didn't see a year ahead of me. Ball was life, and
That's
that was it. So
Absolutely.
But then thinking like you also want to be able to develop the habits that are going to lead to a life, like an enjoyable life after basketball.
Correct.
Whether you're coaching or you're
Right.
in banking or you're
Exactly.
an executive somewhere, like, or you're owning your own business, like those, will you say those again? I want everybody that was listening in to tune into these 3 things, because this is kind of what we're going to challenge you with as we finish up.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, just number one, be where you're supposed to be.
Right.
Be there when you're supposed to be there.
So break
Yeah.
that. Be where you're supposed to be. What do you mean?
Right. Like if you're supposed to be at a meeting, be at the meeting. If you're supposed to be in class, be in class. If you're supposed to be in video with a coach, be in video with a coach. If you're supposed to be at the academic center with a tutor, be at the academic center with a tutor.
Right.
Be where you're supposed to be, and then be there when you're supposed to be there.
Right.
Don't show up 5 minutes late. Don't show up 10 minutes late. Be 5 minutes early. If you're 5 minutes early, it means you're prepared, you're there, you're willing, you're ready to do work. And then when you're there, do the best you can do.
Right.
You're there, why give a half effort?
Right.
And that goes back to my childhood too, I guess. And I mean, obviously with your father's accident, there are bills to be paid
Sure.
and things like that. I mean, I know through my high school career and my college career, my entire goal in life was I'm going to do something, and I'm going to work hard enough that my children don't have to do what I did.
Right.
I grew up working in a tobacco field in the foothills of North Carolina. I mean, and I had
And
to.
look, you were going to believe in some Jesus with a pastor named Floyd Puckett.
Absolutely.
I like
That's
it. I
exactly
like
right.
it. Working in tobacco fields and a pastor named Floyd
no
Puckett.
question. And God rest Floyd's soul.
Yeah.
He took me and my brother in, and did things that young boys should be able to do with their father when my father couldn't.
Right.
I mean, he would take us fishing.
Yeah.
He would do that. And then a good friend of mine, Chris Smith, his dad, Larry Smith, who has since passed away here recently, he made sure me and my brother got to Little League basketball, Little League baseball.
Yeah.
So we had a community who
Sure.
supported us. But I working in those tobacco fields as a young man, like I wanted to go. I grew up a Duke fan. And I know a lot of people don't like
That's
that.
fine. We won't hold it against you.
A lot of people I grew up a Duke fan. I wanted to go to Duke's basketball camp. Well, we couldn't afford it. So I worked in the tobacco fields, saved up my money so I could. But I will say this, if you've never primed tobacco or housed tobacco in one of those hot barns, it's not very much fun. And I'm telling you, my whole college career and since I've been in a profession, my whole goal in life was to make sure my children never had to do that. But then again, that's where I think some of the work ethic comes from.
Sure.
And, and that's why I told my son, I tell my daughter, those things. Be where you're supposed to be there when you're supposed to be there, and give it your absolute best while you're there.
I dig it. I dig it. Benny Moss, thank you. Thank you for being with us today, man. And certainly best of luck to the Chanticleers this year. If people want to get a hold of you, if they want to be able to follow you on social media or just stay in touch with you, how can they get you?
Well, I mean, I'm not a huge social media fan.
Okay.
I just put stuff, but I'm on Facebook, obviously, Benny Moss, and then Twitter, I'm at MossB32.
All right.
At MossB32. So
cool, man.
Love to hear from you.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for being here, brother, and we'll be following you.
All right, buddy. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man.